Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Kim.
And my name's Attiba.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 5, Episode 16, Dr. Bashir, I presume. This episode aired February 24th, 1997. Before we get started, we should introduce our guest. Attiba Royster joins us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me again, guys. Always a pleasure to be on. Very excited to talk about this episode.
It's been a very long time since you've been here. A lot of things have happened.
Yes.
Odo lost his powers, then he got them back.
Yes.
Yes, we found out that Garak's dad was Tane, which I have to say I knew all along.
Shocking. No one saw that coming.
Kira was gone for months because she had Miles' baby.
Right, the whole...
Was it only me? Am I the only one who watched that episode and went, oh, he is his dad?
Yes.
The Kira and the baby thing still blows my mind, even now when I watch it.
I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good excuse that they came up with.
It really was. It was very clever.
You know, when she was pregnant, she looked very sweet.
Oh, yeah. Kai Wynn said she looked sweet, which was pretty funny. And Kira said looks can be deceiving. It was great.
Yeah. So, Attiba, I think we should address the issue.
Yes.
Why this episode? When we have so many crazy episodes, great episodes this season, why Dr. Bashir, I presume?
Number one, this is a major turning point for this character. It's also a good point in this series as a whole to just kind of take a breath and kind of take stock of where everything is. And especially to take stock of kind of the growth of the character of Bashir and how far he's come from that annoying
stalker
horn dog in season 1, yes, to kind of the more respected, less actively horny of a dog in season 5.
Less of an HR violation.
Yes, yeah, with less of a walking HR violation. Correct, precisely.
So that's as good a reason as any.
Well, because there have been some huge developments since the last time we saw you. So I am surprised that this is the episode you picked. But of course, I don't really know what happens after this. So I guess we'll see if I agree that this is a big turning point.
Yes.
As a fan of Cisco, and I know you are as well, I'm surprised you didn't pick Rapture.
Oh, I see. The other one that I contemplated coming on for was for the uniform.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just to see how people felt with the whole, Cisco poisoning an entire planet situation.
If you're the emissary, you can get away with crimes against humanity. I checked the manual, it's right in there.
Yeah, we talked about that one quite a bit at the end where we were like, was that the right thing to do? Was that a very Starfleet thing? Was that legal?
Definitely. Oh, legality. Definitely not. Was it?
Yeah.
I think that might be a Starfleet headquarters is a long way away.
And the biggest disappointment to me in that episode is that it was so ripe to be a musical because they kept talking about Les Mis and there were just all these dramatic scenes and I'm just like, and then he sings. No, nobody sang. It was very disappointing.
I will agree with you there, Kim. When Eddington is coming off the shuttle in cuffs, when they finally have him, a whole musical number there with him and Odo, that would have been special.
That would have been great.
It would have been amazing.
Precisely what Star Trek needed.
Still needs it. Still lacking. Well, should we talk about Dr. Bashir, I presume?
I presume we should.
I mean, we're here.
Yeah.
We might as well. So we open in Quarks with Klingons and Bajorans and Morn playing Dabo. Ram is at the bar, and he tells Quark that today is the day he's going to ask Leeta out. But when she comes to say hi, he chickens out and runs away.
Poor Ram. He's almost like a high school stereotype of the nerdy kid who can't ask out the pretty girl.
Yeah, he has no skills, and I guess no background in it, and certainly no role models with Quark as his stupid
That's
brother.
True. Although Quark is pretty snappily dressed here. That outfit he's in, that's impressive.
Well, hold on a second. Of the two of them, Ram's the only one we know has been married before. So
Excellent point.
Maybe Quark should be taking lessons from Ram here.
Maybe. Quark tells Leeta that Ram needs a woman with a body and brains, showing his assiness right out of the gate. When she protests, he points at her boobs and says, "Take those brains back to the Dabo wheel where the customers can get a good look at them." and we're off to a just rousing start for women in the future.
Continuing the theme that basically
Just a second.
relies on sexual exploitation of Bajorans.
Just a second. I can't wait for this version of Women in the Future. It's going to be fantastic.
Don't get your hopes up. Actually, I got a lot more annoyed the second time than I did the first time through. I think it's because then I start writing it down and it's like, oh my God. Anyway, Miles and Julian are playing darts and talking about fatherhood when a familiar voice says, Dr. Bashir, I presume, and we see Robert Picardo as the doctor from Voyager, only this is the original Louis Zimmerman, director of holographic imaging and programming at the Jupiter Research Station. He says, I'm here to make you immortal, and we cue the theme song.
I gotta admit, I did cheer at this point. I remember watching the original episode and just laughing my head off and going, oh, this is awesome. I'd been watching Voyager since it started, so having this tie-in with Voyager was perfect. And this character.
So I'm trying to remember just how early into Voyager's run is this show. So you're saying this is April of 97? I feel like Voyager premiered in 96 or 97. So this would have only been like a couple months or maybe a year into Voyager's run?
Oh no, Voyager was a year in by this point.
Yeah, okay.
It was a year and a bit in.
Okay.
Because we'd already had the Doctor appear in First Contact and Neelix as the bartender.
That's right.
So they were already pretty well-established characters that we knew.
Okay.
So now Zimmerman is talking to Sisko, and he's being the slightly obnoxious version of the Doctor that we all know and love by now. He's surprised that they don't have an emergency medical hologram on the station, but Sisko points out the Cardassian equipment isn't completely compatible with Federation technology. The original EMH was designed for short-term use only, but now Starfleet wants a full-time holographic doctor, which could be useful in remote outposts and long-range exploratory vessels. And they want to model the new so-called LMH after Bashir. Zimmerman says he needs to work out some technical details and he'll be on the station for at least 3 weeks. And he says he needs quarters and access to the main computers. And I immediately said, did anybody check this guy to make sure he wasn't a changeling?
Oh, yeah.
He wants access to everything.
Kind of happened before, hasn't it? He looks like the ambassador.
Yes.
Let's give him access to things.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine.
I do like how the character of Zimmerman is basically just like the Doctor from Voyager.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And when he says, it was my program after all, it only seemed logical to use myself as a model. Now, did you guys get a total vibe for The Trouble with Edward, the short trek with John Benjamin?
Oh, well, no, he's not quite that bad.
When he said that, that took me straight to The Trouble with Edward.
Oh, funny. All right. That's a little bit of a leap, but I'll allow it.
Hey, that's what I do here. I make the leaps. I make the jumps.
Yeah.
I think he's just part of a long line of quote unquote Starfleet experts coming in and acting like jerks. Because I remember definitely in the Next Gen episode where no one has gone before, Commander 𝐤𝐤𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐼nsky comes in and he's a jerk. Turns out he's not even doing anything.
He's just pretending.
Oh man, that guy's going to end up an admiral.
There's that Terraforma guy that comes in Deep Space Nine. He's a total jerk. Yeah, the experts are always jerks.
The one who actually ended up dying trying to become a god.
Yes.
Oh gosh, that's right. Now we go to the infirmary and Julian is filling out a detailed questionnaire which seems full of ridiculous questions aimed at helping Zimmerman build a full personality for the hologram. Miles thinks that this will make the hologram just as irritating as the real Bashir, which Julian laughs at. This is actually a very cute little scene between the two of them.
Just think of it, Julian. You'll be able to annoy hundreds of people you've never met.
That's a good line. In Quarks, Leeta is working the Dabo table and she has to push Morn off of her as he grabs her and kisses her. Again, I say, not a great episode for women in the future. Zimmerman is admiring her from a distance, and when Julian says he used to date her but she broke it off, he says, oh, I like her already, which was very funny. He says that he plans to add her to the interviews he needs to perform to get a well-rounded psychological profile for the LMH. Bashir asks as a personal favor for Zimmerman to not talk to his parents. He says they're not close and they haven't spoken for many years. And Zimmerman says, okay, I understand. But then after Bashir leaves, he takes a note to contact Julian's parents immediately.
I think we see Zimmerman has no chill, and really is not going to do anything that Julian tells him. He has his own agenda.
It really is incredible that that Voyager's Doctor has become such a beloved character, because this is exactly what it was like in the early seasons, and how anybody didn't just stop watching because of the jerkiness of this character.
Well, the fact that he was a hologram is what made it funny.
Right.
That a hologram would have a bad attitude. If he had been a character like a human character, it wouldn't have been as funny. It would have taken a longer time to warm up to him, I think.
I definitely agree. We'll save it for the Voyager podcast, but a doctor who every other doctor in Trek that we've been introduced to has this like fantastic bedside manner, except for McCoy, who could be a bit of a curmudgeon, but most of them were like kind, caring. And then we have this guy that's totally abrasive that throughout the series realize he has a lot of depth to him, but just initially it's just, why are you such a jerk, man? Just pull it back.
Although, thanks to you, Attiba, I now always refer to McCoy as Disco Stew McCoy.
Sorry, quick aside. I recently saw Star Trek The Motion Picture, the re-release in theaters.
Yeah.
If you've not seen Disco McCoy on the big screen, you are really missing out on something. The beard is just resplendent and the medallion just shines.
Oh, the medallions. Yeah.
I would have been cheering had I been in the theater seeing that.
Now we're looking at version 1 of the LMH, and it looks like Julian, but isn't the final product. And then Zimmerman activates an EMH, so apparently they can have an EMH on the station. And now we have 2 Robert Picardo doctors and 2 Bashirs in the same room. And the EMH is offended that he's being replaced by the LMH, of course. And the holograms trade insults because for now they both have Zimmerman's sparkling personality.
Yeah, they need to test Zesty.
Yeah, because Bashir says he lacks the zest for life in his eyes or something. Now we have an interview montage with everyone, and it escalates from Sisko saying Bashir was young and eager when he first arrived to Kira saying he doesn't know when to shut up. That's Kira's only line in the entire episode, which is really funny.
I laughed out loud when I heard that.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
And Dax says that he didn't harass her with unwanted advances, but he was very persistent, which is definitely written from the point of view of the harasser.
I believe that today is just referred to as stalkery.
Then Miles says he wouldn't want what he says to get back to Julian because he says he's an extraordinary person with a real sense of honor and integrity, great sense of humor, warm, caring. You're sure he's not going to read this, right?
I honestly can't decide here if Miles was deliberately trolling, talking Julian up.
I think he was being genuine. He really thinks those things about Julian, and he really doesn't want Julian to know that he thinks them because he already feels like Julian is full of himself.
Oh, that's a really good point, yeah.
And now he knows why Julian is so full of himself, but not yet at this point in the episode.
Totally agree with Kim there.
Next, we have Leeta and Zimmerman ends up asking her out to dinner, which is a little bit unprofessional in this business setting that he's supposed to be in. But this is the thing that Rom has been trying to do for weeks, apparently, and hasn't been able to. But Zimmerman just goes right ahead and does it. Now we go to Quarks, and Rom sees that Leeta is having dinner with Zimmerman, and he somehow tunes his ear like an antenna, which I don't think we've seen the Ferengi do before, so that he can directly listen in on their conversation. And they're just chatting.
There was the hint of that before when Nog was helping Dax and Kira listen to the audio and figure out who the recording was, which turned out to be Kira.
I don't remember him tuning his ear like he was changing a radio station, though.
No, he wasn't doing that, but they were certainly hinting that the Ferengi have very precise hearing. So I felt this was just what they were doing there, showing that the Ferengi can filter out the other conversations and focus in on specific things.
That would be very handy.
And it also goes further to prove that why isn't Quark doing even better than he is? Because if he can overhear every conversation...
Good point. Well, they're just chatting, and Zimmerman is complimenting Leeta, but mostly it's just polite conversation. Rom interrupts and says he needs to talk to Leeta urgently, so she steps away with him, but all he does is ask if he can stop by to fix her replicator tomorrow morning. She's like, sure, and then he runs away again.
He just doesn't have any nerve.
But it's so dumb. Why can't she just ask him out? She can see, and she already says that she knows that he likes her. And she likes him, so why can't she just ask him? I don't understand this at all. It is like we're in high school.
Gender roles are strictly enforced on the station.
Well, yeah. Oh my
Except for
God.
Dax.
I was going to say, you'd think she could talk to Dax, get some advice. But even Kira would give her advice, I would think, to do what you want. Don't sit back and wait for somebody else to do it.
True.
That's true.
Now we go to Sisko's office, and Bashir and Sisko are working when Dax interrupts with some urgent visitors. And guess who's here? It's Julian's parents, who call him Jules, and they hug him very awkwardly, not warmly at all.
Oh, yeah.
This is 𝐼𝐸 and Richard. Everyone but Dax, in fact, in this scene looks very uncomfortable, including Sisko. I figured she'd be ready to talk about this on her podcast, Inappropriate Conversations.
Oh, yeah. This is great material for Dax. She actually seems genuinely excited at the prospect of embarrassing Julian.
Oh, absolutely. Sisko welcomes them to the station, and Richard says he's been too busy to visit. He says he's working in landscape architecture, designing parks and public spaces. Sisko says they must be very proud of their son, and the father kind of obnoxiously says he's a very gifted young man, though sometimes you have to push him a little. Oh, that would be annoying. Especially since Julian's like 30 at this point.
Yes.
It took quite a while to talk him into taking up medicine, so he's like taking credit for Julian going into medicine. And meanwhile, in the background, Julian is clearly very uncomfortable and very unhappy.
Yes.
We learn they're here to talk to Dr. Zimmerman, which I think we already knew. He told them it was urgent and they had to come right away. I thought it was a long journey from Earth to here, like took weeks to get to the station, but it seems like they just got there in a couple of days.
Oh, I don't know if he said they came from Earth.
Yeah, I suppose they could have been somewhere closer.
It is funny to see Brian George playing his father with a quite strong English accent.
I don't know what else has he been in?
He's in a lot of things. He pops up.
He was in Seinfeld.
He looked very familiar to me, but I didn't look up what he had been in. Well, Julian ushers them away from Dax and the captain as quickly as he can.
Very good
I don't
plan.
think he wants them talking to them anymore. Yep.
Get them away from Dax, first opportunity.
Oh, they're going to be on her podcast, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
In the infirmary now, Miles is enjoying letting hologram Julian walk into a wall over and over again.
I really like O'Brien. That's totally the kind of thing you'd do as an engineer. Hey, watch this. Thunk, thunk, thunk.
Julian asks to be alone with Dr. Zimmerman. He's annoyed that he brought his parents to the station, but Zimmerman is like it or not, they're an important part of your background. Now we go to yet another great moment for women in the future, and Leeta answers the door to her quarters in nothing but a towel. Why do the men on the station never answer the door in nothing but a towel? It only seems to happen to women.
True.
Anyway, Zimmerman drops by with some flowers, and of course, she just answers the door in a towel, doesn't even ask who it is. He spoke to some people on Jupiter Station and learned the manager of the station cafe has quit, and they need a new manager. Although I don't know why a cafe in the future, when you've got replicators, needs a manager. But anyway, I digress. He wonders if she'd be interested in taking that job. And somehow, in this conversation, she accidentally comes out to talk to him wearing no clothes, because now women don't even know when they're naked. This is why I got more annoyed in the second watch through of this, because the first time I somehow completely missed that happened. I must have been looking down or looking at something else. But in the second time, I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't. We're supposed to believe that she doesn't even know that she doesn't have any clothes on. Anyway.
This is the bad sitcom part of the episode.
Yeah.
They should actually play some like sitcom music, when this happens.
Oh my God.
All of a sudden,
so
we're
ridiculous.
watching Three's Company.
It is a little bit like that. But at least on that show, they were all idiots.
That's true. Zimmerman does have a towering intellect, as he reminds her in this scene.
Oh, yes, he does. Well, he says that she can stay with him on the station even though they just met, because maybe she'll develop feelings for him in time. There are these moments on this show where it's like we're doing episodes of Downton Abbey or something, which I cannot understand how we go back in time so frequently with relationships. I don't understand it. Well, she's surprised that he's even suggesting this because she doesn't actually have any experience in this area. She just has ideas about things. But when he encourages her, she says she'll think about it.
He does say, even with her lack of bartending experience, she would be a step up from the previous person.
Yeah, we didn't really cover why. Like, why was that person so terrible? Maybe there wasn't really a person, and he's just using this as an excuse.
Oh, wow, that's dark.
Yeah. If you look at this from a female point of view, this is very dark, this whole story. I hate to tell you.
I thought he might have been genuine, actually.
It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Not what you want.
Not what you want. In Star Trek or anywhere.
Oh, okay. Okay, guys. This has just popped into my head.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
This will be great. I can't wait.
Has anybody considered that Zimmerman is actually some kind of serial killer?
Oh, no.
Maybe.
He was very smooth in doing this and doing the whole story and encouraging her.
Yeah.
And there is actually a trail of dead women, I assume, across the quadrant, all because of Zimmerman. And he's using the whole going to various places for the EMH or his work as a cover.
I had not considered that possibility. Now that I think about it, it's definitely an idea.
It is an idea.
He has some personality issues that I'm sure a profiler might be very interested in.
Actually, aren't serial killers of this ilk usually charming? Oh, I guess he is. I don't know. Like, whatever writer's teen daughter they got to write this subplot, this episode, maybe doesn't know.
Hasn't read many true crime dramas.
Or whatever whatever teenager it is that wrote this subplot.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't know the whole correlation between serial killers and charisma, but then again, Zimmerman is charismatic. It's just repulsive. I don't.
Oh, hey. He is charmingly abusive.
Yes, maybe.
Oh, like Curzon.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. This is definitely the show of difficult
white men.
Oh my God.
Oh my God,
Well,
Curzon.
Well, I do think that he's a lot nicer to Leeta than he is to anybody else, because he is trying to get something from her rather than the others. He just wants everybody else to know that he's so much smarter than they are. But he is nicer to her. He compliments her. He's very positive with her.
He is trying to impress her.
He is, and she does a couple of dumb things, but he doesn't call it out. Like, I think he probably would if Julian did it in front of him. But so I think he is being pretty charming with her.
Okay, maybe, James, you're not wrong, because is he doing that sociopathic thing where he's just doing the stuff to get the result he's looking for?
I think so.
It would have answered this question if we'd had more interaction with Dax and Kira, because I think it would have been funny to see him being rude to Dax and Kira. And I think as well, what would have been hilarious here is if he'd been in an intellectual contest with Dax, of him trying to prove he's smarter than Dax.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Oh, despite your 8 lifetimes, I knew something you didn't. You know, that sort of attitude.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's settled then. Zimmerman's a serial killer. Get on the horn to Memory Alpha and, let's get that entry changed.
He kills people and he just leaves their hologram behind and nobody knows.
Sorry, Robert Picardo.
Oh, my God. Well, now we're having breakfast in Julian's quarters, and we start to learn that his dad is a bit of a serial failure who pretends to be something more than he is. His father pokes at Julian a bit, and Julian pokes back. It's not a pleasant conversation.
No.
Julian tells his parents to keep their answers to Zimmerman's questions brief and to the point. He says, don't give him any openings to probe into any awkward areas. And the father is annoyed and defensive that Julian doesn't trust them. He says, you're worried we're going to slip up, say the wrong thing, and get us all in trouble. And Julian says his whole career will be destroyed if Zimmerman gets a hold of our little secret. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
And then they get into a fight, and Julian storms out. And when he gets out into the hallway, he slides to the floor, which I guess is supposed to be anguish, but I can't say that they really convinced me that that's what was going on there. It just sort of looks like Julian sits on the floor in the hallway.
Yeah, and I really wouldn't want to sit on the floor in Deep Space Nine.
It's maybe not quite so bad in the Habitat Ring. Not as many people walking around there. Now we go to Leeta telling Ram about her new job opportunity, and she's trying to get him to say something, but he continues to be too afraid, and he doesn't tell her anything. You can tell when you watch his actions that he wants her to stay, but he's just unable to articulate it. And this conversation ends with both of them being quite frustrated.
Yeah, she says she'll take the job.
Yep. Now Julian's parents come into the infirmary, and Julian very stiffly says, "Is there something I can do for you?" And Richard says, "It's a stressful time for all of us, and I said some things I shouldn't have." Julian, who, as I'm watching this, is clearly the hologram at this point and not the real Julian, has a very confused and concerned look on his face as they talk to him. His mother says they don't want to do anything to jeopardize his career, and Richard says he will never mention or even hint at the fact that Jules was genetically enhanced as a child. 𝐤𝐸 says, "We've kept the secret of your DNA resequencing for almost 25 years, and we're not going to let it out now." Richard says genetic engineering is nothing to be ashamed of, despite what the authorities would like us to believe. And his mom kisses his cheek before they leave. And then, of course, Dr. Zimmerman and Miles come around the corner. They've been listening the whole time. And the hologram Julian asks, "Who are those people?"
Boom.
Another plot point pulled directly from the annals of Three's Company.
That's true. A misdirection or a misunderstanding. That was
God.
every episode. Oh, that's funny.
Now, you said, Kim, you knew this was a hologram.
Totally.
Again, I can quite vividly remember watching this originally and seeing that he admits it to the hologram
Yeah.
and the other two come out. And I was just like, oh, wow, it was the hologram. I did not see that at all.
I can also remember kind of being taken by this scene, but when I first watched this, I was 22, and there was a lot of things that I was really not perceptive about at that age, so I'm going to chalk it up to that.
I don't know how either one of you couldn't tell that it was the hologram from the beginning. He wasn't acting like Julian at all. He was acting very stiffly.
Oh, you're saying he didn't have that zesty look in his eyes?
He didn't have the zesty look in his eyes, exactly. He was very dead, and he wasn't reactive. And in every other scene that he's been in this episode, he's constantly making faces every time his parents are talking because he's so disappointed in them, and he doesn't want to be dealing with them. But in this scene, he just looks confused. I thought they were trying to obviously let me know that it was really the hologram.
Oh, yeah. Like, watching it now, like, it's very clear because his whole demeanor is completely different. But back then, I mean, I don't know.
Now we go to Julian yelling at Miles for letting this happen, but Miles is like, they just walked in when the program was running, and Zimmerman was testing it in an unexpected situation. And Zimmerman is going to file a report saying Julian is unsuitable for computer modeling because of his suspected genetically enhanced background. This will cause a formal investigation, and Julian says it will lead to his eventual dismissal.
Yeah, Julian is pretty upset.
Well,
he is, and he kind of wants to blame Miles, but this isn't Miles's fault.
Yeah.
Now we learn the whole story. When Julian was only 6, he was small for his age and a bit awkward physically and not very bright. His classmates were more developed. He was still trying to tell a dog from a cat and a tree from a house.
Oh.
That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah.
He knew that he was a great disappointment to his parents, and they made the decision to take him to 𝐸𝐸 Prime, where he was put in a hospital and his genetic structure was manipulated to accelerate the growth of neuronal networks in his cerebral cortex, and a whole new Julian Bashir was born.
Accelerated critical neural pathway formation was the technique used.
He said his IQ jumped 5 points a day over the next 2 weeks. And then they also improved his hand-eye coordination, stamina, vision, reflexes, height, and weight. In the end, everything but his name was altered in some way. And then after that, they had to move to a different city and enroll in a new school using falsified records. And he went from the slowest learner to the star pupil.
So his dad could get hold of falsified documents and make up a background for Julian?
Yeah, there's a few crimes going on there.
I like how Julian says here, when Miles asks him, didn't anybody find out? And he says, there's no stigma attached to success. I thought that was a great truism.
Absolutely.
No, there's no stigma, but there can be suspicion.
Yeah.
But I guess that's why they moved away.
Right.
So, nobody was suspicious that he had changed so quickly or gotten smart so quickly. Miles argues that genetic recoding doesn't give you ambition or a personality or compassion or any of the things that make a person human. Julian doesn't think Starfleet will see it that way. DNA resequencing is illegal. Any genetically enhanced human being is barred from serving in Starfleet or practicing medicine. So he knows when the truth comes out, he's going to be kicked out of Starfleet. So he says he's going to resign before Zimmerman files his report. Now we go to Quark's, and Rom is pining for Leeta. Quark reminds Rom of his failed marriage, and we learn that he signed a 5-year marriage contract with Prinadora's father because he wanted a child, but then he fell in love with her and wanted to extend the contract, And he was so in love, he never bothered to read the extension, and her father swindled him out of all his money. Although I don't know how Ram had any money.
Doesn't seem very likely.
And no. And then Prinadora left him for a richer man, and Ram was left with Nog. Actually, Quark says stuck with Nog, which is kind of sad.
Really does not have a good view of Nog.
No.
I think it's because of the whole joining Starfleet thing. He'd been kind of mean about it.
Maybe Quark really disliked Ram's ex-wife? It doesn't seem like he holds her in the highest esteem here.
That's possible.
Maybe
well,
that hatred is kind of getting transferred over to Nog a bit. I don't know.
Ooh.
That could be, but really, Quark has the Ferengi view of female Ferengi. So I think it's always going to be negative.
Oh, so he's very traditional.
That's true. I'm just trying to give Quark the benefit of the doubt here and saying maybe he just really felt for his brother in that instance, and it's an emotion that he can't kind of let go of. I know if somebody did my brother really wrong like that, I might feel pretty bad about it, and it might transfer over to other relationships.
Okay, but let me say a few things about that. Okay, first of all, she's not the one who stole the money. The father is the one who stole the money.
No, that's right.
And then Quark says that she left him for a richer man.
Mm-hmm.
But by the way, because women aren't allowed to have their own money or agency or anything on Ferenginar, she should do whatever the heck she wants if she actually has an opportunity. Though I very much doubt that she made any decision in this, and that instead her father tricked everyone and managed to get an additional marriage contract and make twice the money. That's my guess.
You're probably right about that.
So the father sold her to a richer man.
Yes, Quark isn't dumb, so he knows that that's what happened. So I don't see how he could hold a grudge against her. I could see why he would hold a grudge against the father, but why her? Again, it's just all about these distorted views of females.
Possible.
So if that's what he's holding on to, then I can't give a Ferengi the benefit of the doubt when there are females involved, because it's awful.
Because Quark respects the father as a Ferengi businessman. Because he cheated Nog and this richer guy.
I really don't think we should talk about Ferengi. Is that really where we want this episode to go? Oh my God. It's bad enough.
Torturing Kim with Ferengi discussions.
Well, my point was not to kind of redeem Quark, but just maybe to say he might care about Rom more than he shows. But it could just be that. It could just be he's my idiot brother and he's an idiot.
Now Julian's father says he's going to get a lawyer and fight this, but Julian is resigned to the outcome. They get into an argument where Julian points out that they never accept responsibility for anything in this family, and his father calls him a spoiled child. The whole argument is awful. It's just not good.
I really like this background, though, that the father is this character who, like I said, won't take responsibility and is always like putting together a plan of the next thing that they do.
Yeah.
When he screws up or it goes wrong, he's got a plan. This is going to fix it. This is going to be the next thing. And he also makes a reference to how the father always has the next big thing just over the horizon.
Yeah. That's that sort of perennial failure thing, I guess. Yeah, but it's almost like being a gambler.
Yeah.
Like the next thing will be the big win.
And we're back to Curzon.
Oh, yeah. Julian says we're both about to be revealed as frauds. When Richard says, I'm your father and you can't talk to me like that, Julian says, you used to be my father. Now you're my architect. The man who designed a better son to replace the defective one he was given. Richard says, you're still not smart enough to see that we saved you from a life of remedial education and underachievement. Julian says, you never even gave me a chance. You decided I was a failure in the first grade. Which really is horrible when he says it that way. He didn't even give him a chance to develop and grow up on his own.
Yeah.
Julian gets very angry and says he stopped calling himself Jules when he was 15 and figured out what had been done to him. He says, Jules Bashir died in that hospital because you couldn't stand having a son who didn't measure up. And then the mother finally speaks up and she says they were never ashamed. She says he doesn't know what it's like to watch your child fall farther and farther behind every day and worry that maybe it's your fault. Maybe you did something wrong during the pregnancy, or maybe there's something wrong with you and you passed on a genetic defect without knowing it. She says, you can condemn us, but we didn't do it because we were ashamed. We did it because you are our son and we loved you. And then she hugs him. She says, just tell us what to do. But he says he's going to resign tomorrow. There's nothing left for them to do. He says he just wants to leave the station quietly and he walks out. And finally, at this point, the father looks devastated. It finally looks like something has hit him emotionally instead of his ego, which has been what he's been putting forward in this whole episode.
Right. I have a theory here.
Yeah.
I think the mother looked at it as she was saying. She saw this son falling behind with a learning disability and possibly other disabilities. And that was what motivated her. And seeing what the father is like, I could see him manipulating her into agreeing with this course of action because the father wants a son who's successful, who, if you like, isn't like him, is the smart one, is the one who succeeds.
That's a point, actually, that I wanted to touch on. Did they not have the choice to just modify him to industry standard intelligence?
Right.
But they chose for the high-end package with the...
the upgrades,
with the super intelligence and the super dexterity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just about making sure that your son is able to not be left behind, then yeah, you just advance him up to standard levels. You want to go further than that because, the father feels like he's not much of a success.
Precisely.
Well, if he's all image, as I think that's what we've seen, is that he's very worried about his own image.
His
and
legacy.
So from Julian's point of view, it makes perfect sense that he's more concerned about himself and how having a son who wasn't measuring up reflected on him.
Yeah. Not
this other part that the mother was explaining. And also, yeah, it's possible that the father talked the mother into it and that she did believe all those things. But you could also think that she spent 25 years convincing herself that that's the reason they did it.
Oh.
But in the moment, they were maybe quite
yeah.
ashamed by him because they were so concerned about their own image.
It's possible.
Yeah.
The next morning, Bashir enters Sisko's office to find his parents already there and a hologram of Rear Admiral Bennett, Judge Advocate General. It seems that his parents have already confessed, and they've reached an agreement allowing Julian to retain his commission and his medical practice, but it means his father is going to a minimum security prison for 2 years. Julian protests, but it was his father's idea, not the Admiral's. His father says it was his idea in the first place to get the DNA resequencing, and he should take responsibility for it. Julian wonders if 2 years is a bit harsh, and the Admiral says 200 years ago we tried to improve the species through DNA resequencing, which led to the eugenics wars. For every Bashir we created, there was a Khan, whose ambition and thirst for power was enhanced along with his intellect. So Richard agrees to this deal, and the Admiral disappears. I was surprised that we could have this full holographic communication all the way to Earth. It's like Earth gets closer and closer with each episode.
There was a telecoms upgrade.
They do place a lot of communications relays. There are a lot of those.
Yes.
And they do travel significantly faster than the speed of light.
Yes. Well, now the parents are leaving, and Julian hugs his mom. I really hope he stays in contact with his mom, because she's going to be lonely.
Yeah.
His dad hugs him again very awkwardly. It's not like we fixed that problem. And Julian does thank him before they leave.
He is actually smiling when they leave, but soon as they get on the shuttle, his mood changes and he does not look very happy. He seemed to be putting on a happy face for them.
Well,
was he being genuine when he said he'd visit?
It's not great. Now he has to deal with his father being in prison and everybody knowing it. Up until this point, he has kept a lot of secrets.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, that becomes your norm when you do that. And now all of a sudden, the secret's out.
Oh.
And also he's got a convict for a dad. Even if he maybe doesn't want to be all about image, it is the way he was raised. It might be something that's hard to fight.
And Julian does care about image. I mean, remember, he was not the valedictorian.
Here's a quick observation. James, do you think this has anything to do with the whole English, what will the neighbors think?
Yes, that is part of it. And I have notes about this in the over-analysis.
No. Well, then Leeta and Zimmerman are leaving as well. But Ram comes running, shouting, "Wait!" He asks Leeta not to go, and he finally tells her that he loves her and wants her to stay. So she drops her bag and kisses him, which shocks Ram.
Well, she says she loves him too.
She does. She apologizes to Zimmerman, but he says it's okay. True love should always win. Zimmerman says something about being better suited to a life of solitary research anyway. But then another alien woman walks by and his head is turned and he rushes after her and asks her if she's aware of the ancient text known as the Kama Sutra. So he's found his next victim.
Exactly. Further proof, Zimmerman, galactic serial killer.
And the hits keep coming for the women. Now we go to Quarks, where we find Bashir and Miles playing darts. So like usual, we finish the episode how we started. Miles is doing well, and he's won 5 games in a row, but it suddenly dawns on him that maybe Julian has been letting him win because his hand-eye coordination was genetically enhanced. So he tells Julian to play for real, and then Julian gets like 3 immediate bullseyes. So Miles pushes him back and several feet to the side as well, and he says, "You can play from here. And if that doesn't work, we'll try a blindfold."
Excellent.
The end. Well, James, over-analysis.
Okay, let's start with the first one. And this immediately kind of goes back to what Attiba was saying about what will the neighbors think. Bashir's dad, I believe Brian George was doing a very specific thing here. There's a tradition in British television of this very popular type of character who dates back, I don't know, forever in TVs and movies. The sort of the wide boy or spiv character who's kind of like a hustler. They're on the edge of the law. They're always looking for something to try and make a few bucks, try and make it big. And they're always on the edge of the next big deal, the big thing that's going to make them. And you see this in British shows like the character of Arthur Daly in Minder, the enormously popular Only Fools and Horses. There was a character called Del Trotter. And because he's an accomplished actor and he understands these things, he made a very specific choice to use an accent that fit in, that sort of the character would be a London-based kind of person. The way he behaved, the way he talked, felt very much in line with that type of designed individual that you would have in that kind of show, and this character that you would see recurring in a British comedy shows. So I think that might be lost on American audiences. But for me watching it, even back in the day, I'm like, oh, I know who this guy is immediately. It really is about how you look, about how, you present yourself. It is a lot about what will the neighbors think.
Keeping up appearances.
Yes, I've got to have a sharp suit. I've got to have a nice jag, even if it's borrowed or it's the owner doesn't know it's missing yet kind of thing. And always the other thing about the characters is they're always really kind of failures. They're always almost making it big or they're getting by, but they dream big. And it fits perfectly with the character of Richard Bashir.
Those characters exist in American television too, but I think they're few and far between. But they're always real tragic figures and looked upon really negatively, less so than kind of your average guy next door. I don't know, I just feel like they're examples of it being quite negative.
There are some, I mean, the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden is this type of character, the kind of get-rich-quick scheme guy now.
Attiba, how old are you?
I'm old enough to have watched Honeymooners reruns.
That
on TV.
Is a reference from, like, what, the 50s? When was that show on?
I won't comment that we mentioned Ronan.
I guess I'm not.
I won't mention we commented on Ronan Martin's laughing.
We did mention. No, that was the 70s.
I guess I'm really not helping this whole bit about me actually being hundreds of years old. But
sorry, you were making a point, but you opened the door. I had to walk in.
But
for your brother,
yes,
I did it for your brother.
I'm sure he will appreciate that the bit lives on everywhere I go now. Apparently, that's great. But yeah, so that's a really interesting point because it would be like if the actor had affected a sort of rough New York accent to play this role.
Yes.
That's a very interesting thing to point out and an aspect of the performance that I wouldn't have gotten initially. So thanks for that, Jane.
Yep.
Next thing. Why did Zimmerman call the parents? My theory is Zimmerman is basically jealous. His model was used for the original EMH, and he was looking for some reason to disqualify Julian. Perhaps bringing the parents in, who he knew because Julian had told him, that they had a poor relationship, he could do something to sabotage the project. So they'd end up going back and go, oh, well, just use the EMH program, just use Zimmerman. Because Zimmerman seemed concerned about being immortalized in having his image as the EMH. So this was a deliberate attempt to try and sabotage the project.
Okay, so I would have to say knowing what I know about the Voyager EMH, if the rest of the EMHs in the fleet are the same, I'm sure there's an admiral somewhere that said, get us a freaking EMH that is like nice.
Someone I can stand.
Yeah. So I don't think that it would have just ended with, oh, well, it didn't work, so we're stuck with this guy. No, they would have found, let's get Beverly Crusher in here and let's take all of her information. She can be the EMH now. I don't think it would have just been, oh, well, this didn't work, so we're stuck with the rude guy now.
Yeah, like the fallback is just that one guy. There are no other options. It certainly could have been that he was trying to sabotage it, but it could also just be that he's a purist and he really feels like those things he was saying were true.
Oh.
He really had to get all of the personality traits, including the warts, and get them all to be a part of it so that it was a pure hologram experience.
Okay, I didn't think of that. That's a good point. That he could be very genuine in this and take his job so seriously. Mm-hmm. It has to be perfect.
He certainly seems like that.
Yeah.
My only note in the overanalysis is this. I would think that an enhanced person would actually be the perfect character to be the long-term hologram.
Yeah.
So that didn't seem like a disqualifying reason. That actually seemed like a bonus.
Yeah. I think because of the eugenics wars being so devastating and such a turning point in human history, and the things that they led onto were so traumatic or so horrific that genetic engineering is absolutely seen as the worst thing possible.
Verboten, yes.
Oh, I get why you don't want to allow somebody who has been enhanced in Starfleet or as a real doctor. I get that.
Yeah.
But my point is a holographic version having enhanced traits would make sense. That it's better if the holographic version is actually slightly better than a human in many ways. To me, that just made sense. But I get why you wouldn't want that in Starfleet, which is why this whole deal that they made of 2 years in prison doesn't really make a lot of sense. That they would then go, oh, so I guess it's okay that we just allow an enhanced human to stay in Starfleet.
Oh, well, the other side of what I'm saying is a lot of that resistance to it is probably just emotional and isn't logical. It's fear of what it can be. It's fear of the Khan sort of thing.
But humans forget bad things, at least Americans. We forget. Something terrible happens and we forget in 5 minutes. And so I would be surprised at this point that we would be still holding on to this problem.
Humans are very good at that. It seems to be a trend that, in the future it maintains generally as a species.
Yeah.
I will also point out that there have been other episodes of genetically modified humans screwing everything up besides the eugenics wars. You guys will get to that when you do your Enterprise podcast. I just thought about Kim doing Women of the Future for an Enterprise podcast.
We're not going to make it past the shower. It's not going to happen. I didn't make it past the shower.
Yes.
But yes, there have been other instances where there have been genetically modified humans that have messed stuff up.
Yeah, that is true.
So it wouldn't be like something that from antiquity that they're holding on to. It would be like, we have these other instances.
There'd potentially be people alive who remembered it.
Yes.
But for your hologram, imagine if Bashir was your hologram on some remote station somewhere and you just wanted somebody who could play every sport. Someone who could compete with you in every sport, play every game, could compete at anything, have conversations about everything because he'd read everything. An enhanced person in those situations, I think, would make sense.
Yeah.
My question is, they want the LMH for long distance missions where life support is at a premium. Why not just have entirely holographic crews or just computer automated ships for those missions?
That would be a really boring series. We'd have a 40-minute episode watching flashing lights.
You're right. It's not great TV.
Well, at this point, the holograms can't beam down to a planet. They don't have the thing that the Doctor has in Voyager. They don't know how to do that yet.
And besides, whenever they beam down to a planet, they just make things worse anyway. It's probably not...
Bad things that people die. That's a good point. If you're just going to go out and look at things and send back info, you don't need any people.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That was a good one. Next one. So, Miles talking to Julian about having a family. Could the genetic enhancements that Julian has be passed on to offspring? So you're running the risk of more Khans just by Julian having children.
That is an interesting point. I'm not sure. Would the enhancements affect
if you cloned
any
him,
of the
yes.
reproductive cells? If you cloned him, yes. But if it's progeny, that's an interesting point.
My progeny.
I assume it probably not if the partner was not modified and was a normal human.
But this might be why Julian doesn't want to have kids. This is what he's assuming.
Right. And my question is, do the effects of the modification extend to reproductive cells?
It sounded like they had to do it to specific things.
Right.
Because he was saying they did it to this and to this and to this. And if they didn't do it to the reproductive cells, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just enhanced his neural pathways. It's not changed his basic genetic structure.
But it did, right? I thought he said that it changed his genetic structure. I thought those were the exact words that he said.
Oh, then maybe it does. Maybe they do get passed on. The way you had talked about it earlier in this, making this point about it seemed like they had just attacked specific things. But if it was more holistic, then who knows? But my question is, do we think that genetic enhancement is the answer to why Bashir was so horny in season 1?
Oh, God.
Oh, like Khan and how Khan seeks power. Julian.
Oh, my God.
It's manifested itself in other ways.
And as Miles said, the personality wasn't enhanced. So it just took
brutal.
his normal personality and gave him a different kind of drive than what his personality could cope with.
Wow. Yeah.
I have to think about that. But his intellect wasn't evolved enough to know that what he was doing was wrong. So I question a lot of this.
It enhanced his stalkeriness too. That was the downside.
Except he totally bombed at it, so I'm not sure that was really enhanced.
That's true. Well, Khan didn't manage to hold on to power, even though he was a power-hungry maniac and super intelligent.
Also true.
Because he had emotions and an ego. If he was Vulcan, it would have been worse.
And fantastic pecs, by the way.
Amazing.
Oh, and the hair. Come on, the hair was awesome. Even been stuck on a barren planet for years, he still has fantastic hair.
God, what a great character God was.
Yes.
We have to do that movie.
Oh, absolutely.
That one is also being re-released later this year.
Good opportunity for us to do it.
Moving on from that.
Okay.
And sticking with Julian. Was Julian's decision to be assigned to Deep Space Nine, is that because Julian, to an extent, wants to keep out of the spotlight, to kind of hide the secret? If he was working in one of the big institutes or something like that, it could come out, somebody could find out by accident, by looking at his DNA, maybe, or by his achievements. So he was going somewhere where he could do something he was interested in and that he wanted to do, but at the same time was far enough away to keep prying eyes out.
Probably. That's also why he wasn't valedictorian, right? He probably did that on purpose.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, that exact point, I think if it hasn't come up already, will come up. That he actually threw the exam that would have made him valedictorian.
Well, there was the All My Tennis Balls episode where the alien was in his brain. And he said something about that, which didn't make a ton of sense.
He deliberately answered the question wrong.
Okay, that was it, yeah. Did you also notice, I think I said a couple episodes ago that never before in the history of television has the word ganglionic been said so many times. Did you notice he said it again in this episode? I need to keep a counter of how many times I've heard that word. So yeah, I think what you're saying is possible, sure. And he wanted to be as far from his parents as he could be, too.
There also does seem to be that.
That's true.
My final point. We finally come to the end of my 40 minutes of overanalysis.
Yeah.
So this is a moral, ethical question. So in the episode, genetic engineering was banned except to correct serious birth defects
He did say
genetic problems. Now, it sounds like Julian had a serious learning disability. Would that have classed as something that would be repairable through genetic engineering? clearly this shows it was. Was it a defect significant enough that he wasn't just a little bit slow on learning or was a slow developer or anything like that, that there was something genetically wrong that was causing maybe a brain condition or something way more serious?
That is a good question. Okay. Do you think blindness would be a condition that would require genetic modification?
If it could be repairable, I would say yes.
Yeah, the question is, why wasn't LaForge then modified to be sighted?
Well,
it may not have been repairable. That's true. The only thing we know about the nature of his blindness is that he was born with it, but we don't know if it's a genetic condition or some other condition.
That's a good point. Maybe they draw the line with things that you can repair through technology.
Maybe.
Because we can give him these implants, as he has later, or the visor at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Being masters of headcanon on this show, I would also say that it could be that his parents had that option and didn't want to do it because they were so afraid of what it might cause, of what the result might be. They may have been zealots against it. And so there might have been an option.
Oh.
Again, this one bit of dialogue is causing a lot of trouble.
That's the nature of Star Trek.
I know. But it is an interesting point. And yeah, what degree of defect would constitute the need to go in there and start changing things?
Yeah, where does the legal line drawn in this world? Maybe there's a risk to the child as well.
Yeah, there could be a risk. Sure.
There could be a risk, definitely.
And with that, I wrap up the overanalysis.
A couple things I'd like to touch on. Number one, I always appreciate seeing how people that are not the best of the best of the best are dealt with in Star Trek. Usually most of the characters that we see are like exemplary human beings that are like perfect or near perfect. And what's it like in the Federation if you're not that? Most of the lower rungs of Maslow's hierarchy are taken care of by the society that you're in already. So, yeah, what would life be like for someone who maybe wasn't a super high achiever? Like, what would Bashir's prospects for life have been if he'd not been modified? Like, would he be
busboy at the restaurant in Louisiana?
We were wondering where the waitstaff came from.
Who's washing the dishes?
I think Attiba has answered the question there.
But maybe these people are just super fulfilled in life by washing the dishes. And if so, then it's an incredible society.
Well, they're not all, it's a mixture. Some people who they just want to be part of something. They want to be part of a team. And so they're washing dishes in the restaurant. And some people, that's just the best they can do.
But maybe they're happy with that life.
But happy with it, because apparently I don't think that there's anything in Federation society that would prevent you from just moving on to doing something else if you weren't happy.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of people leave Starfleet, so we don't know. At least not on good terms.
It's true.
We got Cal and we got Snodgrass, but otherwise we don't see a lot of it.
It's true.
But I just think I always like seeing kind of what it's like for the 99%
lower decks
Federation citizens.
Yeah.
Well, certainly on Next Gen, they try to convince us that everybody's more evolved, and because I guess that was Roddenberry's vision, right? That we'd all evolved out of these other things. We're so much better as a species.
Intellect triumph over emotion.
But that would not be interesting enough to carry all these series. There's got to be some nuance in people, and it's not. I don't know if it's realistic or not, but it would make sense that you have to recognize that they're just normal people. Not everybody can go to Starfleet and not everybody can be super smart.
Right.
Well, and Julian's father is an example of that. This is a guy who's basically not been successful at anything he's done. Mm-hmm. He might have eventually now found something that he's good at with this landscape architecture. But up until that point, it doesn't sound like he's had much success at anything.
No.
Also, Jake Sisko, who has no interest in being in Starfleet, what is his life like if he's not in a position to be successful as a writer, journalist, because he just happens to be where he is?
His job is to keep the emissary alive. He's done it twice so far. Basically, Jake's role is to keep the emissary alive.
That's interesting. We might have to talk about that in later episodes. But yeah, I think one of the things that I appreciate the most about this series is you kind of get that glimpse into just what it's like for average citizens in the 24th century, just living life.
I gotta admit, that is one of the things that appeals to me. It feels more organic.
Yeah.
It does. Because other things that I like about DS9 is, as opposed to Next Gen, these characters come to you fully formed, and they are, as I said, they feel perfect, aside from a few minor flaws, but they're supposed to be exemplary humans. And in DS9, we find out that them being exemplary is not. It's a struggle. It's something that they have to work towards constantly.
Well, that's what Miles talked about. Yeah,
right. It's not Picard was just born one day knowing exactly what to do and what to say and how to motivate people and how to just be awesome. Like, it's a struggle, and we see that struggle more in the characters in DS9. So
over to you, Kim. What do you have?
Well, I already talked about my one item in overanalysis, so I think I'm covered. So I will move to Women in the Future. Not a great episode for Women in the Future. And it's actually been the last handful of episodes hasn't been bad for Women in the Future, but we certainly had a few questionable ones early in this season, like the one with Vanessa Williams where they went to Ryza. That was terrible. There was the looking for Parmok in all the wrong places. That was terrible. So we've had a couple of clunkers, but lately it's been improved. So I haven't had a lot of stuff to say in this section. And I don't have a ton to say that I haven't already said, so I'm not going to harp on the things that I already mentioned. But I do find it frustrating. This thing, I bring it up all the time. When something happens to a woman, especially in her workplace, and nobody does anything about it, I find it really upsetting. Maybe it's because of all the training about anti-harassment behavior that I have to go through as an employee and a manager in the state of California. And I just had a 2-hour course recently, and I could practically give that course. I've had to take it so many times. But when I watch what was happening to Leeta in her workplace when Morn was basically mauling her, and there were Bajoran workers there were Starfleet people there, and nobody did anything. They just accept that that's the type of work that she does, and she should just accept that, and she should allow it. My point is, somebody like Kira, somebody like Dax, they should at least be having a conversation with her that you don't have to live like this. This isn't the job that you have to have. Maybe there are economic reasons within her family that are forcing her to do something like this. But I find it very stressful to watch and just to see nobody do anything. Women need allies in the workplace when they're treated like that. And that, I just find that upsetting. And to see this now 5 seasons in, it's just like, come on, Star Trek, get over it. And let's move on to something a little bit more evolved. I have no problem with Leeta being kind of dumb. I mean, people are dumb. That's what we were just talking about, right? That not everybody is going to be a genius. But Ram, he was extremely dumb in the first couple of seasons of this show, but now we're proving that he's not really dumb. He's just socially awkward. He's actually this brilliant engineer, and he's really good at something. So maybe they're going to do something like that with the character of Leeta. I don't know, but at this point, she's kind of a negative stereotype, and the way that she's treated is very negative, and it's frustrating to watch. And then the scene where she accidentally walked out naked is so stupid. I mean, of all the stupid things that happen in this episode, and maybe even in this season, that's exceedingly insulting to say that, she just didn't even notice that she was naked, which is why we can just let the Ferengi women be naked. Maybe they don't even know that it's happening to them because they're so stupid. This is where Star Trek, I think in the 90s, wasn't always written in a way that respected their own audience. And it's almost like they didn't think women would watch the show or get anything out of it, but we were getting something out of it. We were watching it. And it's just hard to go back in time and watch it and to almost like relive a time period. It's not that things are perfect now, but they were even worse then. So overall, Women in the Future in this episode was pretty frustrating.
What about Dax, though?
Yes, Dax does have some more for her inappropriate conversations with Jadzia Dax podcast for sure. She can definitely have Julian's parents on, and she could even probably have Zimmerman on.
I wish they'd shown more interaction of her with Zimmerman, because I would love to have seen an intellectual battle of Zimmerman just trying to one-up Dax.
The thing I like about Dax is she's always happy to be there. She's always the one having a good time, you know, even when there's like some goofy party, she's enjoying herself. Even though she's had the most lifetimes, and we talked about maybe you would become so cynical because you'd seen everything after living so many lives, she's the opposite. She's always just happy to have a new experience or be part of something. So I think her Inappropriate Conversations podcast would actually be quite positive. But I also think it would be like, oh my God, Dax, you can't talk about those kinds of things. But anyway.
That's what would make it inappropriate.
Exactly. Well, let's go on to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating? Who wants to go first?
Oh, this is a thumbs up for me. Again, feel like this is showing you a part of Federation life that you don't often get to see. There's a moral quandary at the core of this episode, and it asks difficult questions and tries to solve them, maybe not in the best way, but at least brings them up and brings them to attention and sparks debate. So yeah, it does the best of what you want out of Star Trek, I would think.
All right, James.
I liked the episode. I really liked what it showed about Julian, and I liked this expose of Julian's background and him having being engineered, and it sort of made a lot of things make sense. And that part of it I liked. The B story they could have put somewhere else. I think you could have had the B story being Zimmerman's rivalry with Dax, and maybe O'Brien, who's the cleverer person, because I think that would fit, and I think that would make a better story. It felt too goofy.
Do you think they thought that the A-plot subject matter was so heavy they needed something that silly to balance it out?
On this show, no.
Yeah, I don't.
That wasn't that heavy.
I mean, we've had incredibly tough episodes.
We just released the episode, The Darkness and the Light, where the guy's killing all of the freedom fighters in Kira's history. And yeah. So this show embraces the dark.
That's true. Any Miles O'Brien episode.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Torture him and do horrible
Hard
things to him.
time.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, how about the most depressing episode in Star Trek history, The Quickening?
Oh, Kim's favorite.
Oh,
I love that episode. That was also a Julian episode, I'll point out. But no, I give it a thumbs up. I wish the B story hadn't been there, or they'd done a different B story. They'd moved this B story to another episode. Maybe the Ascent would have been a good one to put this in, happening in the background.
You know, or not had it. I totally like Zimmerman and Dax sparring. I think that would have been a way more interesting B plot.
Yeah. So, thumbs up.
Well, this is a pretty good episode, I think. I give it a thumbs up, but I do think they should have maybe embraced the seriousness of the drama on the Bashir story.
Agreed.
In previous episodes, when there's been something really dramatic and really big, there is no silly B plot. Or if there is a B plot, it's not quite this silly. They could have made this A plot the entire story, and they easily could have filled the entire episode with it. They didn't need that light-hearted, sort of goofy thing in the background when this is trying to tell a serious thing. So I would have suggested they actually just turn this into more of a drama and embrace that. And I think the episode would have been stronger. I certainly liked the entire story with Julian. I thought that the acting wasn't stellar. And I think it's because they didn't embrace the drama and everybody didn't quite know how they were supposed to be behaving. Like the guy playing his dad, I'm not sure he thought he was in a drama in the first half of the episode because he was a little bit goofy. And I think if we had embraced the serious nature of it and the whole thing had been dramatic and focused on that, it would have been less uneven.
Yeah.
But I would still give it a thumbs up.
There are weird tonal shifts in this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, that point is well taken. And yeah, if they could have been more consistent, it would have been probably better. Not that it's bad, but
kind of a disappointing use of Robert Picardo, honestly. I mean, a Star Trek legend. I think he could have been used a little bit better.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a good episode, and I would probably watch it again. Do you know my biggest disappointment was I thought this was going to be another one where Bashir was 007 with the title.
Oh, because they hint at it at the beginning, yeah.
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 I kind of like that one. But anyhow, it wasn't.
Well, there's that whole story of them getting told, you're not doing any more of those. That was a little too close.
A little bit of a copyright infringement.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, Attiba,
Yes.
give us the details, your podcast, and whatever else you're working on.
Yes, if you're interested in hearing any more of my ramblings about pop culture, you can listen to me and my brother on our podcast, Teebs and Kid Phoenix Versus. You can find that podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can also follow us at Teebs and Kid Versus on Twitter.
Your brother has very good taste.
I'll let him know you said that. You can also follow me at Attiba K on Instagram and on Twitter. And yeah, that's all I got going.
And the best episodes of your podcast are when your sister comes in and busts your chops.
Yes, those do tend to be fan favorites.
I do enjoy that. I sat through the 2 episodes that you did that James was on, where you did the Star Trek draft.
Where James drafted the worst Starship crew of all time, yes.
Janeway and Kira could rule the universe.
They could.
Not season 1 Kira, I will grant you. But season 5 Kira, I think so.
All will fall before them.
Well, that wraps it up. I will put links to Attiba's podcast, and I can also put it to your website in the show notes, so anybody can see that. And we look forward to whatever the next episode is that you picked to join us for.
Thank you, you guys. Season 6, quite a bevy of good episodes to choose from. I'll have to choose carefully.
Well, thanks for joining us, Attiba.
Thank you for having me, guys.
All right, does that wrap us up?
I think it does.
Think so.
So that wraps up season 5, episode 16. Come back next week for episode 17. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at Rebinge and Twitter at Rebinge. You can check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can listen to all of the previous episodes of this podcast, obviously, but we also have podcasts for every Star Trek show.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.
And that's it from me.